Hi everybody, welcome to this Python tutorial. Today we're going to look at an intro to parameters where a function is given some data to process. The scenario is a program is asked the user to enter a salary, and it calculates and displays the tax on the salary. And it repeats this process a certain number of times. So we are going to be using a loop. A global variable is used by the program. So let's jump into our IDE and have a look at the current program. Here's our helper function. It's called calculate tax, and it processes something called salary. Using this data, it calculates tax. Finally, it displays the result. In our main function, what are we doing here? Well, we're asking the user to input a number, and we're using that number to control a for loop. Ooh, that's interesting. So if I enter 10, this for loop will loop 10 times. Ooh, that's nice. Okay. What we're going to do 10 times is get a number from the user and then process that number using the calculate tax function. Now, as you can see, the main function and the calculate tax function both need to access this data stored in the salary variable. So one solution to this problem is to create a global variable called salary and then figure out where we need to use the global keyword in the Python functions. Calculate tax doesn't change the value of salary, so we don't need to use the global keyword here. The main function does change the value of salary, so we do need to use the global keyword here. And if we run our program, hopefully it will work as expected. How many salaries will you enter? I'm going to do 3. So we're going to do this 3 times. I'm going to enter a salary. So the tax is 2,500. I'm going to enter a salary. Ooh, the tax is getting bigger because the salary is bigger. And we'll enter a salary. Ooh, that's a lot of tax on the salary. And that's the end of the program. So that's a fine solution to this problem. However, there is another solution, and this allows us to reduce the number of global variables that we have in our program. So I'm just going to delete that global variable, and I'm going to delete that global keyword. Let's look at another solution to this problem. When we call the calculate tax function, why don't we give it this value stored in the salary variable, like this? We're going to send it some data. And when the calculate tax function wakes up, it says, oh, there's some data. And then it processes the data. Let's see if this works. How many salaries will you enter? 3. Enter a salary. So when I enter this salary, I enter the salary here, and then I call the function, and I send it this value, 20,000. It's currently being stored in this salary variable. But actually, I'm sending the value, 20,000, to the function. It sees the value 20,000, and then it starts to process that value. Brilliant, it works. All right, so we've solved the problem without requiring any global variables. We're now using parameters. Before we finish the video, I'm just going to explain one weird thing. When calculate tax wakes up, it sees the value sent by the calling program, which is here. It sees the value. It doesn't see this variable name, salary. No, it sees the value stored in this variable. So when it wakes up, it catches the value in its own variable. This is the parameter. And we can design the function and call that parameter anything we want. I'm going to call it x. Just change all these salaries to x. Let's see if it works. How many salaries will you enter? Oh, we didn't get it this time. in my function, I forgot to change this to x. So let's do that right now. Three salaries, 20,000, 50,000, and 100,000. So when you're designing your functions, don't worry about what you're calling the parameter. Call it anything you want, okay? And when we call the function, we're just going to send it some data, which the parameter catches, and then we process the parameter. Now, just to give you one final example of that, what I'm going to do is design a new function called display result. The display result is going to take the value of x, which is the salary, and it's going to take the value of the tax. So we're going to call a function called display result. And I'm going to design this function now. Now it takes two parameters. You don't need to care what you call those parameters. But the first parameter refers to the salary, and the second parameter refers to the tax. Okay? So I'm going to call the first parameter salary value. Doesn't matter what you call it, guys. That might take you a little bit of time to appreciate. And the second parameter is tax value. And all we're going to do is display the salary value and the tax value. So whenever we call this function display result, we need to send it two pieces of data. The first piece of data will be something related to a salary, and the second piece of data will be related to something related to tax. Okay? So in my calculate tax function, I'm going to figure out what the tax of a salary is, and then I'm going to call the display result function. Okay, so let's run this one more time and see if it works. We're going to enter three salaries. Boom! It works. We've solved the problem without requiring global variables. We've been designing functions which process parameters. Have a go.